Welcome back to the Real Power Podcast. I am super excited to have an awesome guest sitting across from me, John Boychuk. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, nailed it.
Boychuk.
Yep.
John is 25 years old, first of all. He is a college dropout. You dropped out of college?
I got my associates, but I dropped out of the 2+2, so not
Okay. So
entirely.
halfway a college
Halfway
dropout.
a dropout.
He is now a full-time real estate investor. He owns 80 units of residential and commercial real estate, Airbnbs to laundromats to waterfront motels. The guy does it all, and he's only halfway through his 20s. Dude, I'm so excited to get into your story, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Take us back to 6 years ago, 19 years old, right? Decided college wasn't for you, and how did the whole entrepreneurial journey start for you?
I mean, I've always been entrepreneurial as a kid. So going way back, I was going to MCC. I was in the 2+2 with RIT, computer science. So I was excited about that, or so I thought. It was going to be a 4-year degree, and at the time, I thought I liked programming and all that. And I think going to school for it, I kind of realized it isn't what I wanted to do, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I think I like being like creative with it, and then once you're going to school and you're like, oh, this is what you have to do, it's kind of like, maybe this isn't for me. So anyways, I worked summers, needed a job. My mom cleaned for this lady named Heidi who had some apartments in Rochester. So I was working for her, mowing lawns, like trimming bushes, putting down mulch, like doing landscape work, cleaning
All the
out
labor for her,
these nasty apartments where people got evicted from and they just trashed it. And it turned out like I really liked it. I wanted to learn the business. So I talked to her and I was like, hey, anyway, I could just come in and learn, like, you don't have to pay me anything. Like, I just want to kind of see how everything works. So she ended up paying me, like, to come in a couple hours. So I worked the summer, and then going back to school, that's when I'd come in a couple hours a week and kind of learn the software and how things were done and all that. And that's really how I got my start into it. Just got me more excited about it. And then she had a lady that was managing her properties for her. And I don't know, there's some issues there. Basically, they went separate ways. And so she offered me a full-time position, like helping her manage all these properties.
Oh, full-time.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay. So I was still going to school and working for her full-time.
You were busy.
Which, yeah, it was not fun. Taking discrete math and Calc 2 and working 40 hours a week. But I kind of realized, like, this is more of what I wanted to do. And so that's when I was like, all right, maybe I'm not going to continue school, which my parents were not thrilled about.
I was going to say, what did your parents think about that
They
decision?
were not thrilled at the time because they came here from Ukraine. They met here. I mean, they worked 2-3 jobs my entire childhood. Like
classic, like immigrant parents.
Yeah, exactly. Worked hard, saved everything they could. They wanted me to go to school. Like that was kind of the natural path of getting a good job, so I wouldn't have to work 3 jobs like they did. So they were not thrilled about that, but I was making decent money, right? Like I was 18 years old at the time. So I'm working for her, making decent money and learning the business. And so I started saving money. I didn't have a lot of expenses. I was still living with my parents, and I bought a duplex on Genesee Park Boulevard.
My man. That's how I started.
Still own it. And the original plan was I'm going to move into it. So I did the owner-occupied,
FHA loan?
I did conventional because at the time, I think you still can put down 5%, but you have to occupy it for a year. So the plan was to go and live there. And basically, by the time I was ready to move into it, this was almost a year later, like I renovated everything, my parents were moving down to South Carolina. So I never actually ended up moving into the place.
Which is fine. You have to have the intent, right?
Which is what I wanted to do. But when they were going down to South Carolina in 2019, I was like, well, someone's got to watch your house. Why don't I just stay here?
Oh, there you go.
So I ended up having a much nicer house. And then I was able to rent out the other place. And start making some money.
And you were cash flowing right off the bat then?
Well, no. I mean, it took me like 8-9 months because I did all the work myself. I renovated.
Once the work was done, though, you rented out both units at the same time?
Yeah. I had the upstairs rented the entire... It's a funny story. So when I bought the place, the tenants that were living up there, I guess, weren't paying rent. And I didn't know this. Like, I was told this whole deal was just like terrible, in all honesty, right? Like, which is probably for the better, because I feel like if I did really well on the first one, I probably would have gotten overconfident and then wouldn't have done so well with the others.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't paying rent. So I kind of went in there and I was like, hey, are you guys going to move out? Or are you guys going to start paying? Or do I have to evict you? And, right, like, don't know any better, not very diplomatical. It's just like, what is it? And they were basically like, we'll leave by next weekend. And, you know,
Didn't put
we're
up
done.
a fight or anything? They're
Didn't
like,
put
we're
up a
gone.
fight or anything. Broom swept the place. I was shocked. And they found me my next tenants that were there.
That is like the cleanest eviction ever.
I have no idea. Like, I didn't have to do anything in there. I replaced the stove. That was it. Because the stove was just trashed. Mm-hmm. They found me my next tenants. They moved in a month after they left. And those people were there for like 4 years. They left this past December, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like a mixture of really good luck, I guess. And then the downstairs. So the upstairs kind of was always rented. The downstairs I was working on because I wanted to move into it. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make it mine.
So you're making it pretty nice down there.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It was really nice. Way over improved it, right? Like all the mistakes on a first property
Sure.
that you can make. Still my worst deal to date. Like I'm probably into it for like 150, 160, and it's worth like 170 maybe. But that's what got me into it. And that's a big thing is like, you just got to get into it.
Just got to get that first deal done.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The lessons you learn from it are more powerful than any cash flow or profit that you get from it.
Yeah. And there wasn't like, you know, you can read all these books and listen to all these podcasts, and I did. Mm-hmm. And I was working in property management. So I was like, I kind of saw it. I think when I started working for Heidi, she had like 140 or 180 apartments. So I saw a lot of different stuff, but nothing prepared me for like buying the place and all the little things that I dealt with. Like there's no book that covered it.
You can read
nothing.
all you want until you get into it. It's like
there's all these little things that happened
Yep.
that now aren't even that significant to me. But at the time I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like so because I had occupied, the previous owner evicted the downstairs people for me. And so we walk in there on the final walkthrough and the place is trash. Looks nothing like when we originally walked through. And I'm looking at my realtor and I'm like, hey, like, is there something we can do? And they kind of were just like, no. And like now I know better, but at the time I was like, oh, okay. So I closed on it, right?
yeah.
And there's just all these like different little things that happen like that over the years that you won't get it from a book. You got to just do it.
Real education, real
Yeah.
world education.
Yep.
Cool. So that was your first deal, and you still own that property today?
Still own it today.
You plan on holding on to that?
I'm going to hold it for a while. I got a really good rate
Interest
on
rate
it.
on it?
Yeah. I'm paying like, I think 4% on it.
It's a good rate compared to where we're at now.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't really have a reason to sell it. Rents have gone up significantly. When I bought it, I think it was like $750 a unit I was getting. And granted, everything's remodeled and looks really nice now. I'm getting, I think, $1,100 or $1,200 a unit there now.
Nice.
So it's gone way up, and it makes sense to just keep holding it.
What did the next deal look like?
Little single family house on Melville Street.
Melville. Okay.
Yeah. And it was a rough area back then. Like, you know, we're talking, what is this, 2018?
It's definitely gotten better.
Oh, so much better. Like I was driving down there and like there's all these boarded up houses and like windows broken and people hanging out on the corner.
And you figured this is where I'm going to invest.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. So funny enough, Bobby, who's one of my partners on the motel, he's a realtor. I don't know how we ended up talking about this house, and he's like, I think you should go buy this. And probably one of my best deals to date. It was a single family house, 5 bedrooms, rented out as a rooming house. So every room in the house, one of the bedrooms was actually the dining room. Somebody like put up doors to separate the kitchen and living room off, and made that a bedroom. And there were a couple guys in there on DSS, $440 a room. So like on paper, the house cash flowed ridiculously, and I paid $35,000 for it. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be such a great moneymaker. That was not the case. I had cops there. One of my tenants made the news for robbing a gun store.
Robbing a gun store.
Robbing a gun store. And then he told the cops that he hid all the guns at my house.
Oh my
So they like raided the house. I was over there, like,
Dude, what a
thought I was
nightmare.
gonna get shot. They're like, "Oh, can you open this door for us?" I'm like, "Sure." And I'm
Bracing
watching
yourself.
this cop like starting to reach for his gun. And he's like, well, when you open the door, step back and to the right. And I'm going to step in front of you. And I'm like, all I could think was, this is like a little thin, flimsy interior door, right? Because we're inside the house. This is the dude's bedroom. And I'm like, I don't think this guy's going to wait for me to step out of the way before he starts shooting through the door. So the whole rooming house thing didn't last long. That ended pretty quick. I was like, absolutely not. Turned it back into a single family rental.
Still cash flowed pretty good.
Yeah, I did all right. Obviously not as good as a rooming house, but
way less headache than
so much less headache.
Yeah.
I put, what did we do? We did flooring and painting mainly. Left the kitchen how it was. The upstairs bathroom needed to be fixed up a little bit. Spent less than $10,000 fixing the place up, and put a couple in there. They were paying $1,300 a month, and they stayed for, I think, again, like 3 years. And then I sold that house just this past year for $138,000.
Nice, man.
So that's probably the best deal to date, where I'm into it for like 40 and made almost $100K on it.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how many residential deals did you do after that before starting to shift into other stuff, commercial?
I did a lot. It's hard to keep track.
Were you staying in residential for a while before?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it kind of, the commercial stuff just kind of started popping up. Like, people are bringing it to me. I
Sure.
wasn't really looking for it.
Yep.
I was
Opportunities
kind of like,
presented.
stick to what you know. And then I saw shiny things that people brought to me, and then I started chasing them. So I did that for a while. I did, I'm trying to think, like 5 or 6 deals that were like a mix of single families and duplexes. Jeremy Fisher, I met him at a real estate meetup. Great guy. Owns a couple laundromats, tons of storage units. Just a great person. He owned this building on Genesee Street, and I think we were at one of the coffee club meetups or something, and he was just mentioning about selling it. And I'm like, oh, this is big. Like, I want bigger stuff. Maybe we can make something happen. So I met him over there, walked through the place, and it's Genesee Street. I wasn't entirely sure about it, but the numbers made sense.
Yep.
And he gave me a good deal on it. Like, just a stand-up guy. We're friends to this day, and I don't think we've done any more business together, but we was always like kept in touch, hung out.
That's like a classic example of a more experienced investor just kind of putting the rope down for a younger guy, that's hungry and showing that they're willing to like get their hands dirty. And it's a perfect example of like, show people you're in it and they're going to help you.
Absolutely. That's the one thing like I love about Rochester and the real estate community here. Not to say it's not like that anywhere else, but everyone's so like friendly and helpful. Everyone's willing to help you out. Like, tons of guys helping each other out. Everyone's making money and getting along. And there's like friendly competition, you know, like you'll bid with other people against houses, and it's like, well, you got this one, I'm going to get the next one kind of deal.
It's just fun, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like no hard feelings. There's
always deals.
Yeah, exactly. There's not like this weird, and maybe there is, but overall, like, there's no like weirdness going on. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so he kind of helped me get into my first commercial deal. That was and that's actually what led to the laundromat. So this was there's 3 apartments there. There's 2 storefronts, and there's a garage, which is rented. It's a small garage. And so I bought it from Jeremy, and there was this couple that owned the laundromat. They had bought the business from Jeremy years ago, and they kind of just ran it into the ground. And so we were able to work out a deal, and that's how I ended up getting the laundromat. It was a really cheap price, and like all the infrastructure and stuff was there. I think that was the first commercial deal that I ended up doing. It was kind of just through him by coincidence. I wanted to do something bigger, and that's what led into that and the laundromat as well.
How is owning a laundromat? Is it because it's really running a business in itself, right?
Yeah, it is.
Do you have help like running that, operating it, or is it all you?
It's mainly all me. I got one of the neighbors that lives next door. He comes in and cleans the place for like $20 every time he comes in there.
Okay.
But yeah, I go over there a couple times a week and empty all the quarters and stuff. So I'm working on getting that outsourced. I like it. I like the concept of it and everything. And I definitely learned a lot. Like, I would do things way differently if I even had that same opportunity again.
What would you do differently?
So originally when I got it, it was like 10 tiny washers and 10 tiny dryers. And that was what the problem with the place was. A, they were 10 years old, so they constantly broke. And B, they were small machines and people want bigger stuff. So I owned it for like a year, and I was just sick of all the headache with like fixing old machines, and business wasn't really picking up. So I went in, I put two 40-pound machines in there. So these are like big washers. I think that I had 22-pounders in there before. So I put two big washing machines in there, two big dryers in there, and they're double stacked. So you have four big dryers. And then 5 new washing machines. And I was like, oh, this is going to fix all my problems. Everything's new. Nothing's going to break. And that didn't really work out that way.
How so?
So business definitely picked up. It was a significant, these machines, big washing machines are like around 10 grand a piece. And then,
Oh, wow.
15. And then big dryers are about 10 grand a piece. So it was like a huge upfront investment. And I was like, it's going to pay off. The space is really small. It really needs more big machines and less of the small machines. And now I'm kind of like, I haven't decided entirely what I want to do with it. I've got so much other stuff going on that I don't really focus on it that much. It makes a little bit of money every month, but it's not really worth it. It's just more of like something I enjoy doing and kind of like giving back to the community. And everybody comes in there, like everyone's got a story. So it's kind of just a cool... At this point, it's more of a time sink than it is a business.
Sure. So you don't see yourself like scaling, like getting more laundromats and.
I'd like to do more laundromats. I definitely do it differently. Bigger store, better location. Like I've got all these like drug addicts in that neighborhood, and they like to come in there and they like to smoke and do their thing. And it's like, so initially it was a lot of like chasing them out. Now they don't really come in there, but it's like, if I were to do it again, I'd like to get a store in a bigger, like a plaza or something.
Just a better
in
area.
the suburb. Yeah, in the suburbs, like a better area, bigger store. That way I can have somebody. It can make enough money to have somebody there. And granted, this was like a great learning experience because I figured out like what to do with machines and how everything works. So I do want to do more, but I'm kind of waiting until we got the waterfront motel figured out before I dive more into those.
Let's talk about the waterfront motel. So give a quick rundown on just what it is and how it's going there.
So me and my two partners, we have 43 rooms on Seneca Lake. We're right on the water. We got room for 35 boats. We've got a bar and restaurant that we're running this year. And we have a 6-bedroom house in the back, so we can sleep about 15 people in there comfortably.
Beautiful.
And then a little cottage all the way in the way back.
And what's the name of it?
Showboat Hotel.
Love it.
Yeah, that's been a real trip. So that's like, you're talking about business, right? It's not passive income. It's, you really got to work for it.
Oh, you're running it, yeah.
Yeah, that's this. This is a real business. It's not hotels, motels. They're not a passive investment by any means, right? Like any property you buy is going to be a bit of work. You get it rented and now it kind of drops off, right? You rent a property and there's not really a lot of day-to-day with it. This is always like you're constantly having rooms turn. You have employees. There's always something going wrong, always something that has to happen. But it's real exciting. It's something new and it's a great location. I love being out there.
Oh, it's beautiful down there.
It's incredible. And the whole drive down, you're going down 14, so you're driving through Geneva. Beautiful little town. It's kind of like got a European vibe to it.
It does. It's so underrated.
Yeah, right? I think that area is going to grow a lot in the next couple of years. But it's absolutely beautiful. And then you're driving down 14. You got the lake on the left side. Got all this beautiful country, grass, scenery.
Especially this time of year, man. It's a beautiful
it's incredible.
drive.
Yeah, it's nice and sunny out. You get all that blue water.
Yeah.
Anyways, I love just being out there. All my stress kind of decreases once I get down there. The further I get from Rochester, all my stress levels drop.
Right. Yep. So would you say that the motel is like your main source of revenue in all of your portfolio and your businesses? Or?
No.
No?
No, I'm fortunate enough to have a sizable real estate portfolio because so when we bought the motel, it was very neglected, like lots of deferred maintenance, 26 of the rooms. So it was 2 buildings. We have a creekside building, a poolside building, which are kind of across the road towards the back of the property. And then we have a waterfront building and the bar and restaurant building, which are right on the water. So the poolside and creekside buildings were so neglected that honestly, like, you couldn't pay me money to stay there. So we've been spending a lot of money upgrading everything, renovating everything. It was never really known as I shouldn't say never. For a while, it hasn't been known as a place to stay. The previous owners kind of upgraded the restaurant a little bit. They knew how to throw a party and get people in there and have a good time. But the motel has been neglected for quite a while. So there's been a lot of capital investment in that to get it into a condition where you feel comfortable having people stay there. So we haven't really made any money from that yet. But it's coming.
It's a long-term play.
Absolutely. You know, once you get to these bigger properties, that's just what it is. And especially like this is a whole business you got to turn around.
Yeah.
The place was really, I mean, it's got a long history. A lot of famous people stayed there.
What famous people?
I don't know off the
Anyone
top of
off
my
the
head.
Okay.
No, my memory is terrible. We have it. If you go to our website, you hit history, it'll tell you everything
right
about
on it.
it.
That's cool.
Yeah. Or if you ask Bobby, he'll tell you. So that place took a ton of time renovating everything.
It's got to feel good, though, seeing all that come to life.
Yeah, night and day difference. I mean, you're going from like, we had people showing up last year, like after we renovated those 2 buildings, to stay there because they had booked. And they were like bringing their own linens. Like, what's going on? And they're like, this place just wasn't, like, people were not comfortable sleeping in there.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to kind of bring back the like charm to this place because it was really popular in the 50s when it was built, the 60s and 70s. When the original families ran it, they lived on site. They took great care of it. Everybody that's local, like you get down to Geneva, that whole like Finger Lakes wine region, everybody knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of them hung out there as kids. Like there's all these, met so many cool people through it, and they all have great stories to tell about the place. And it's awesome to be able to save something, right? Like there's so much history.
Yeah.
You know, and Bobby was kind of the one who he drove down there and he was like, man, I'd hate to see this place get bulldozed and turned into some like millionaire's mansion, right?
He saw the vision in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And he kind of got me and Heidi on board with it, and we were like, let's do it.
Well, it's awesome, man, because we just did a shoot for you down there, and we're excited to really help you market it and really show off in its best light because it's a cool spot. And I think promoting it on social media will only help it more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see how everything comes out.
Yeah.
The shoot went super smooth. Like everything was great. And we need more content for our social media.
Content.
Absolutely. The whole brand, like Showboat's been, kind of peaked in the 70s, and then it was kind of on the decline from there. That's at least my understanding from what I've heard from other people. So now we're kind of trying to spin that back and, get people coming there again and make it known as a comfortable, great place to stay again. And also try to restore some of like that old like charm to the place. It was really cool. If you look up some old photos of the place, and we'll have some hanging up in the restaurant and house and stuff. All the buildings when they were originally built, they looked like boats. So that's where the whole name Showboat comes from, is all the buildings look like boats if you're out on the water looking at the land.
Very cool.
Yeah, really sweet. So it's kind of a shame that it's lost that like original charm. But we're at least, it's a big reason why we kept the name, is it just had so much history and we wanted to bring back like the charm and bring people back to the place.
Well, I'd love to go down and stay. Me and my wife love to do little weekend getaways in the Finger Lakes, wherever we can find spots. So definitely have to put that on our list.
Absolutely. You guys got to come down there.
All right.
Do a little wine tour.
You tell my wife that, she's on board immediately. So we were talking about partnerships before we came on, and how majority of your stuff is solo, but you do have partners like on the motel. How do you feel about partnerships, and what have you learned about them to make them go well?
Partnerships are tricky. So what I kind of learned is long-term partnerships get harder and harder because, as you grow and develop, right, your business, your personal life, I feel like that's what happened with the partnerships that went wrong, is we kind of both grew in different directions and we want to go in different directions. And so then what we originally agreed to do wasn't going to work for one or the other of us. You got to really know somebody before you go into business with them.
Personally, you got to know them.
Yeah. And that's because who you are as a person reflects in your business, right? If you're super organized, your business is going to be organized. If you're chaos, your business is going to be chaotic. If you're dishonest. The way you do business is going to be dishonest, right? Definitely being more hesitant and knowing people better before getting into business with them. I don't know if it's by sheer luck. I've had other partnerships go extremely well the past year. Great guy, Sam Shrimsher. We did a flip on Parkdale together.
Sam's awesome. Yep.
He's an awesome dude, super honest, super organized, and we have great synergy because we kind of like, we're opposites, right? Like I'm kind of just like a go, get it done. And he's more analytical.
Your skill sets complement each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we did that flip, and I don't know how I agreed to do this because this was on the tail end of that like bad partnership. And I was like, oh, well, let's try this. What's the worst
another
that'll happen?
partnership.
Yeah, exactly. But I ended up doing it, and I'm so glad I did because it went incredible. And I think part of it was like, oh, this is going to be a short-term thing, right? If you're flipping a house, it's not a long-term partnership. Like
it's a good taste.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So that's probably a better way to get to know somebody than it is to like go into to buy a building that you're going to buy and hold.
Right up,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You got to have your plans to get divorced before you go into business with each other, because everything's going great when you're all getting together and everything's going well, and then people change, man. Like once you start, hey, this isn't working out, this is what we got to do. Suddenly, the person who was very willing to compromise isn't willing to compromise. So you got to have your plan ahead of time.
Especially when shit hits the fan, you see someone's true character.
Yeah, absolutely. Have your attorney put together a great JV agreement or operating agreement for an LLC. And yeah, you got to test the waters with people first before you get into long-term business with them. I think that's the biggest thing.
Absolutely. And even, if you're doing a deal with a family member or a friend, I know it may feel weird putting everything in paper, going to an attorney to draft something out, but it's so important just to set the clear expectations. You're not doing it because you're expecting things to go wrong. It's just, if they do, we have everything laid out and it's ready if things do go south.
I don't know that I'd go into business with family, like just with my experience that I've had. I really don't want to go into business with friends because I'm like, I value most of my friendships a lot more than like a potential business opportunity too. So you really got to talk me into that. But I feel like you got to be prepared for it to go bad. Prepare for the worst. Hopefully the best happens. Something like that.
Yep.
I don't think that's the saying. But
it sounded okay though. Back to your portfolio. What's your favorite property that you own right now? Do you have a favorite one?
Question. Honestly, probably the Showboat.
Is it?
Yeah, definitely. It's the most work out of everything. But it's also, I think it's helped me grow the most, like personally and with my business. And it's also, I just love being out on the water.
There you go.
Like I've always wanted to have a boat or a jet ski or something. And I always told myself until like I have a waterfront house,
then
I'm not going to buy it. That's when I'll get one. Cause then, right, who wants to trailer it around by the time you put it in the water, whatever. It's like, if I can walk out my front door and get in my boat, get in my jet ski and ride around, that's when I'll get one. And so this was kind of like, have something on the water. So let's do it. So it's been great for like work-life balance as well. But it's also, I've grown the most like business-wise and everything from it. Just being surrounded by Bobby and Heidi, like different ideas, all the people in the neighborhood. Locals there are so friendly, like you wouldn't believe it. So knowledgeable, and it's like just being around all of those people has helped me so much. So that's definitely the best one by far.
Cool.
Not profitable, but hey, not yet.
Maybe down the line.
Down the line, definitely down the line.
Yeah.
But it's it's a multi-year thing. And I follow like Ben Mala and all these other guys that do these huge projects, and that's the thing with these big deals is you got to have enough income coming in to get you by for a couple of years, because that's just the way they go. You don't turn big things around that fast. And that's, I learned that working for Heidi. We got, she'd buy all these huge buildings, and it'd be a couple of years before they could start making money. Just by the time you got everything fixed up and renovated, fix all the deferred maintenance, you've got so much going out. But then in the end, it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
But I'm also excited about it. We've got 10 acres of land right there. And so we've got some land that we want to develop down the road, build some like cool cottages or A-frames or something back there.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just a lot of like different things I've wanted to do in life coming together in one place, and it's going to make money too, which is like the icing on the cake.
And that's the power of real estate, man. There's so many different avenues and ways you can take it, and it's just such a cool industry. It's something that attracted me into the world of entrepreneurship. I mean, I've thought that my path was going to be kind of similar to you, just building a portfolio. I've got a small portfolio of rentals, but you know, this ended up being my path I took with the whole real estate media side. But I still do want to get into like bigger stuff, bigger deals down the road, and it's super inspiring to see just where you've taken your own portfolio and the things you can do with it.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. I never in a million years would I have thought I'd be where I am today, right? Like I was going to school. I thought I was going to be sitting behind a desk programming things. And to think I'd be like running around and making my own schedule and all this, like never in a million years. Nor like having a portfolio as big as it is right now. So it's one of the things, like age is just kind of a number to a degree. Like luckily I look a little older, so I feel like that hasn't hindered me.
Got a nice beard.
Thanks. Because some people, they feel like they're being looked down upon because they're younger or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I mean, yes, there's individual specific cases where that has happened, but it just goes to show you that like if you're willing to work hard and put your best foot forward, you will be able to accomplish things. And there's so many people that have helped me along the way. Like they see a young guy that's trying to make it, or they see themselves in you, right? Like they see themselves 10, 20, 30 years ago, and they want to help you out. And I've, seen that more than like people judging you and trying to set you back and, push you away kind of deal.
And I think a lot of younger investors, entrepreneurs do have that fear, or that they think it's negative that people will look down on them. But I say lean into that, because like you just said, people who have experience and are doing bigger things look at you and they see a little bit of themselves in you, and they want to help pour into you and help you up the climb. So like you said, age is just a number. It really is.
Absolutely. I couldn't have articulated it better than you. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's, just because you're young doesn't mean you can't do it. But at the same token, you're never too old to start any, as well. There's a ton of guys that I've met that were just getting into this in their 40s and 50s, and they're doing incredible things. And I think that life experience goes a long way too. Granted, I think I was a little lucky to get into the business and be able to work for somebody and learn the business so much through that. I feel like I had a bit of a advantage over, somebody who's just graduating high school and they want to get into it. Like best advice I could say is find somebody that's doing it and like ride their coattails, figure out a way to work for them, help them out, and they can get you into the industry. It's so much easier than
You learn so much.
Yeah, exactly. You learn so much, and it's so much easier than trying to follow like the YouTube path or whatever, because you have somebody you can go to and be like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. And like having people around me that were in the business, like Heidi, saved me tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. Like there's all these little tricks you can do, especially like when it comes to loans. Fun fact, so once you start doing bigger loans, there's ways to assign those mortgages, which will save you on the mortgage tax. Because you're not forming. Sorry, this is a poor explanation. So say you have a property.
This is great concept.
You have a property with a loan on it for $500,000, right? $500,000. You did some improvements. The property's worth more. You're going to a bank to get a loan for $800,000. You can have the original. Granted, the original note holder has to agree to it and help you out. But you can have the original note holder put together some sort of assignment agreement. I don't know all the exact details, but basically that first note of $500,000 is getting assigned to the new lender. So you're not paying mortgage tax on that $500,000. You're just paying it on the new, $300,000 loan.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you can save a ton of money. And there's just so many things I've picked up along the way,
And you never would have learned that had it been for mentors.
No way. Years down the road, maybe I would have figured it out.
Yep.
But it's like one of those benefits of surrounding yourself with older, wiser people and trying to listen more instead of talk all the time. And I don't know entirely how it works. Like I just was like, hey, this is what somebody told me. Sorry, called up my attorney. I was like, hey, this is what somebody told me I could do. Is this true?
Is it true?
And he looked into it, talked to the lender's attorney and all that. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. We'll draft it up. it cost me a little more money, but I still saved like what I would have paid in taxes. So it's not worth it for smaller deals. You know, you're talking 100,000-200,000, but once you start doing bigger loans, it absolutely is something worth looking into. Also heard that, so like rates went up. Another thing that I've heard is being done now, if you have a loan with a lender, right at a low rate, some lenders are willing to come in and give you a loan in second position. It'll be at the higher rate, but you get to keep your original loan with a lower rate. So now you're only paying more interest on the new money that you're taking.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's just like stuff like this that I've picked up from different people.
Little tricks.
Yeah, and it's like you'll never hear that in a book.
No.
I guess you'll hear it on a podcast now.
There you go.
But you'll never hear it in a book. You got to get out and meet people and do it.
It's so key. Meetups too. Like you meet so many like local meetups, so many the people doing the same thing as you, and the power of networking like that is huge.
Absolutely. And so many great people go to, like, have you been to upstate New York's?
I haven't been to any of the meetups in person. I used to go to the coffee clubs at Wegmans. And COVID hit and kind of
died down from there.
Yeah,
they started them back up.
I gotta get going again for sure.
Yeah. No, upstate. Yeah, I mean, I started really growing my portfolio once I met Greg Taylor, hard money lender, right? Private money lender.
Yep.
I think I did like 3 deals before I kind of really got into the whole private investing thing. And it helped me scale my portfolio so much, being able to come in and buy a rental property with cash. Granted, this was a couple of years ago. It was a lot easier to buy stuff on the market. You come in, I'm paying all cash. You can get it cheaper because you're able to close faster. But then being able to come in and then refinance with a bank after the project was done, instead of saving up that 25%, putting it down on the property, buying it, then scraping away savings to try and remodel it. That was a game changer.
The Burr method, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I grew not entirely my portfolio that way. I grew it for a few years that way. And then the past couple of years, I started selling stuff off, doing more flips and that sort of stuff. And I think the Burr method's great now that the environment's kind of changed. I think you got to do more of a mix of doing Burr, but also flipping to bring in capital. And it was I couldn't quit and do real estate full time until I started flipping houses, because rentals are great. And like, I have a sizable portfolio, but I also have very sizable maintenance expenses every month too. You think you have all this cash flow and then you got to replace a roof, or I had a water supply line, the main supply line to the building. It's actually leaking outside of a fourplex that I owned. So we had to excavate the whole thing to the street, and that was a several $1,000 repair. There's something that happens every month that costs you a couple $1,000.
Well, I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking they have more cash flow than they do, because they don't account for the reserve on the P&L. Like that's an important number there, because things are going to go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're calculating it by taking your mortgage payments and subtracting that from your rents,
that's my cash flow.
I got bad news for you. Yeah.
I got a wake-up call for you.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, that's what they do, and I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening. We've kind of been lucky. We've had such a long, I've been lucky. We've had such a long, bull market in real estate. I mean, there's been some small corrections, but nothing's major has happened. So I think when it does turn, the people who are kind of doing stuff like that are
we're gonna see.
Yeah, we're gonna see it. Kind of like with the Airbnb regulations. So I have a couple Airbnbs. Everything I did had to make sense as a long-term rental.
Yep.
Before it made sense as an Airbnb. And I've got a couple that I arbitrage, but that's it's not really a big deal. I'll find another tenant and move my furniture out of there. We'll make something happen, right? But buying properties, I was always it has to make sense as a long-term rental before it makes sense as an Airbnb.
So smart.
You have to. And now all these regulations went out, and that's what happened. People who
everyone's betting on Airbnb, and it's all right, now what? What are you going to do with the property?
Exactly. And now we've got the zoning changes that are going to be coming, I think, this October.
What are the zoning changes?
So the Rochester city zoning map is going to completely change. Everything's getting rezoned. Part of that zoning code is R1 and R2 residential zones won't allow Airbnb rentals.
Wow.
Yeah, so like that's the majority of the city. So if you've got like a duplex on Genesee Street that you Airbnb out,
No more
once those
Airbnb.
zoning changes come in, granted, I don't know how enforcement's going to go, but we're going to see a lot of Airbnbs disappear once they figure out how to enforce that and that ban happens.
That's crazy.
So it's just another, people have been fighting it, but I feel like the politics in Rochester are headed in a certain direction. And I think there's not enough resistance to change that yet. And so I'm pretty sure it's going to pass, and that's, what their code writes now. So if you're in like mixed use zonings, basically anything aside from R1 and R2, you'll be fine. So a lot of people that are super into it, like they've been paying attention to that and making sure their Airbnbs aren't going to get outlawed, but a lot of people are going to have to do something different. They're going to have to pivot with their units.
Goes back to having multiple exit strategies, like run the numbers as long-term rental and have a different plan if things don't work out.
Yeah, you got to buy it right. That way you can get out of it and make sure it works other ways. Growing my portfolio, it was always, my long-term goal was to work for myself, like do full-time real estate. So it was always like chasing the cash flow on all these properties. And because that's what I had to do, right? You got to pay your bills somehow. And then, I started meeting these older investors. They're kind of like, well, cash flow is a myth. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, I had 36 units and there's always something coming up. We didn't really make any money from it. It's like, huh. So the game really changed once I was like, all right, well, I can make money flipping houses. And backtracking a little bit, all my rentals I bought with upside on them. So I bought them for less than what they were worth, or I bought them for what they were worth, renovated them, now they were worth more.
Yep.
So if I'm in a bad position, I can sell something and I can get some cash and resolve whatever that's going to be, right? So another thing you don't want to do is end up over leveraged in a rental property and then something doesn't work and you're kind of just done for.
Yeah.
So when COVID happened, I had a couple properties and I had this duplex on Hollenbeck Street. It's not that bad. It's between Clifford and Ridge Road in Irondequoit.
Okay, it sounds bad.
So it's like, I wouldn't live there. But so I bought this place, got a great deal on it. My dad, when my family on my dad's half came to the U.S., they actually lived, and my dad grew up on that street. It's kind of like I saw that duplex pop up, and I was like, oh, I'm going to buy this. It's more like sentimental value.
Sure,
I still got a good deal on it, luckily. But then COVID happened, and these tenants who were working and never had an issue paying rent before, all of a sudden, they couldn't pay their rent. And so I was going over there because the city was violating me for all the new TV boxes and Xbox controllers and stuff laying in the backyard that I had to go pick up. And I'm watching Grubhub get delivered to the door, and I'm like, dude, I'm so happy I have a couple rental properties, because if that's the only one that I had and I was working my job, making a couple grand a month, and I had to spend like $800 a month paying for these scumbags to live here,
that's stressful.
I probably would have lost it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's kind of when I learned, like, if you're going to do this, you got to do a lot of this, right? You got to buy more. You can't do 1, 2, or 3. If you want to be in the business, you got to be in it. Like, you got to buy, I don't know what a great number is, but at least 5, because then you have enough wiggle room that if something's happening, they kind of offset each other. Whereas if you only have the 1 property or 2 properties and your tenants stop paying,
all your eggs are in one basket. And
yeah, exactly. And then what do? You're working your job, and you're taking the money you're supposed to be feeding your family with, and you're paying for somebody else to live 100%. Out of your pocket.
That's such a good point. And I think more people need to hear that. And it comes down to putting in the work to build up that portfolio before you decide to do something crazy like quit your job after buying 1 rental property, because people on social media are preaching you can reach financial freedom with just a single house. And it's like, you should be building up a very conservative amount of cash flow before even thinking about quitting what you're doing, especially for the fact of if you have a good W-2 job, you're going to want that income to qualify for loans if you're taking the conventional financing route. Everyone's hungry to jump ship on their job, but you got to put in the work first.
Yeah, nobody likes their job, right? Like that's not true. There's plenty of people that like their jobs, right? But I wasn't a fan of my job, right? Like I wanted that freedom of my time to kind of do what I wanted when I wanted. Now that just involves working 100 hours a week, but it's fine. But I can wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what?
I'm not feeling it today.
I'm not feeling it today. I'm going to ride my jet ski and then I'll work till 10 p.m. instead. And that's what I want to do.
That's the key right there, man.
Yeah.
That is.
But anyways, so everyone hates their job, right? They want to leave. And you got all these gurus on the internet selling like 2-3 properties. You're home free. And it's a shame because a lot of people are getting taken advantage of. But yeah, I had 18 doors when I was ready to go full time, and I did a flip that I made more than 50 grand on. So it was kind of like, that was more than I was making in a year. So I was like, I've got this cushion here, so I can at least, I have a year to figure it out.
I'm good for a year.
Yeah, exactly. And I kept my living expenses super cheap and all that. And so I had a year to kind of figure it out. And that's when I was like, okay, let's do this full time and see what I can do with it. But yeah, I mean, you hear it all the time. Oh, 1, 2, 3. You can have 3 Airbnbs and quit your job and, all this crazy stuff. And it's like, if you have a good job, consistent income, you got retirement benefits and stuff, like you make 50 grand a year, but you have health care, 401k, all this stuff. You don't have that. Once you get into real estate, you're making what you're making. All your loan stuff changes, right? Yep. Like I was qualifying for these 30-year loans at a fixed rate, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, yep. Freddie Mac backed. And then once I left, I mean, I was making good money, right? Like I sold that house that I flipped. I had all these rentals. Didn't qualify for any of those anymore. I don't think I do now, but I'm using commercial products anyways. So
sure,
I'm kind of past that point. Mm-hmm. You got to keep in mind that it's not just the number you're getting every month. It's also, you got to factor in like, what are you going to pay for health insurance once you're, you don't have a job. And I'm just getting into this, right? I'm turning 26. I'm about to lose mom and daddy's insurance. And so now I'm like shopping around and I'm like, these numbers are big, man.
Yeah, they are. Well, you know what I did, man? I got married. I got my wife's insurance.
I don't think that'll work for me. My girlfriend, she's also self-employed. So it's kind of the same thing. Like, but yeah, it's a big factor is like healthcare, especially if you have a family. I'm lucky because I was young. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of advantages doing it young because I didn't have a family. Kind of had nothing to lose. I was set on the whole health insurance thing. So there's like so many factors I didn't have to consider. It really was like, all right, I'm making enough every month that I could get by. But I still had that cushion. I was like, I need to have something because I don't know, once I leave this job, which is really good, it wasn't some big corporate job where it's like, oh, I can just come back or whatever. My position got replaced. Somebody else had to learn and do it. And so it was like, there's no going back. At
burning
this
the boats.
Yeah, exactly. Burn the ships.
So what does financial freedom look like to you? Would you consider yourself financially free at this current point, or is there a certain number you're looking to hit, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd consider myself financially free just because, like my goal, my whole like reasoning behind it was I wanted to make my own schedule. And I mean, I work a ludicrous amount, so it wasn't about like not working. But it's being able to live life on my own terms, like do what I want to do when I want to do it. And obviously that's a very generalized statement, right? Like you're going to have appointments you set up and you can't blow them off, and you're going to be meeting people to do different things like photo shoots, and you can't just be like, we're not going to do this. But for overall, like I love being able to wake up and be like, you know what? I feel miserable right now. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to take a day to myself and recover. That way I can come back stronger tomorrow. And you don't really have that ability when you have a job. We've been going on trips for the last 5 months. Like we've been doing a small trip every single month. We're going to Miami in June with Brett, so that's going to be a blast. And it's like I couldn't do that if I worked a regular job, right? So I think I'm there. I'm not where I want to be. Like my goals are probably ludicrous.
Sure, as are all of ours.
Want a helicopter in a couple of years. I don't know how realistic that is, but we're shooting for it, right? But I think I'm at the point where like I'd consider myself to be financially independent.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think the public persona of financial freedom these days is laying on a beach doing nothing, and I just have the mindset of when you love what you do, and your expenses are covered by what you do, that's true financial freedom, at least for me, and I can see that it is for you
Absolutely.
too. It's really not about the money and the numbers at all. It's about being able to take a day off if you feel like shit and you want to recoup the next day, and having the being able to travel when you want and take off time when you want, like designing your work around your lifestyle versus the other
Yes.
way around. That's how I see it.
Yeah. And that's kind of the whole, like, we're in an era of anybody with a smartphone can go out there and say something with extreme confidence, no matter how stupid it is, and people are going to buy into it. And working hard doesn't really sell, but hey, if you can live this great life where you're on the beach all the time, people are going to buy into that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where this whole like misconception happens. I mean, I don't know a single successful business owner that doesn't work.
No.
Varying degrees of how much they work, right? Like, Randy's a great example. Heidi's a great example. They've built their businesses to the point where they take very minimal input from them to produce that same output. And I'm still at the growth phase where it takes a lot more putting in to get, get something back out of it.
It's because they went through that growth phase.
Yeah,
they went through that
absolutely.
season of
They
working.
struggled and grinded, and
Yep.
they made it, and they still work. Like, I don't know any business owner that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Whether that's, 5-10 hours a week, or it's 40, 60, 80 hours a week. And I think there's this whole, again, it comes back to what sells is you don't have to work. And I think that's just delusion. Like, I don't think that's possible. Like, you're going to have to work varying degrees, but nobody's going to take care of your business the way you're going to take care of your business. And you should. And one of my weaknesses is delegating. It's something I'm working on, right? But there's no delegating that. I don't think you can reach a point delegating where your business is going to be as looked after as it is when you're doing it,
Sure.
right? Like, I think you get to a point where you're big enough that you can take the hit on that money that you're losing, and it doesn't matter because you'd rather trade that for your time. But I think you look at any business that's gotten to that point, if the person who ran it like came in and started scrutinizing everything, I mean, they're probably wasting tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars every month, year, whatever it may be. But it's like getting to that point where you can afford it, if that makes sense.
What do you do for fun?
I miss golfing. I'll say that.
Are you a good golfer?
Oh no, I'm terrible.
You said that with such confidence.
No, but it was such a great thing to do with people because you can get out and talk, socialize, have a couple drinks, and you're doing something physical, right? You're moving. No, I played at Eagle Vale once, and I will never go back.
It's a beautiful course.
Beautiful golf course. I'm not ready for that. So as you know, there's a row of houses on the right side of the first hole.
There is. Yep.
First drive, I sliced it super bad. Ball went super far off to the right, and I think I hit one of those houses.
Did you hit a house?
I can't confirm or deny that. But we moved on a couple holes further after that. So, yeah, no.
It's such a tough game, man.
It's tough, and you really got to be dedicated to it to learn it. There's so much technique that is involved in it. So I'd like to do that more, but it's kind of tough right now with everything I got going on. Love being out on the water. Jet ski, we got a wake boat down at the motel, do some tubing, like absolute blast.
It's your happy place.
Yeah, yeah. You're out there and it's so peaceful. Like, you're in nature. It's not, because you walk around Rochester and like everything's concrete, everything's been developed and touched. And when you're out there just being in nature,
It's nothing
I love
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. I mean, go out to bars and stuff, but that's not really positive. What's the word? Not encouraging positive behavior. So
Sure. Well, when you're working a lot too, that takes up most of your time. And when you love what you do too, it's a great thing because I think a lot of people, they demonize hard workers, but when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. You know what I mean?
I remember when I was doing manual labor, right, like mowing lawns and all that. It's hard to get through an 8-hour day, man. But like now what I'm doing, I'm working 12, 14 hours in a day, and it's like I wasn't even really working, right? Yeah, you get home, you're exhausted, but you're ready to go next day and love doing it. That's the my favorite part is not dreading Mondays, right? Like,
Yes.
it's not, man, it's Monday again. Like the weekend is over so quick. It's just, it's another day. Let's go and do this.
Yes, I love that. Because I used to dread
Life-changing.
Mondays so much, man.
Oh man, it was so bad.
That was
It'd be
in my-
like the weekend felt so short, and like you're driving in and you hate it. You're not looking forward to it. Driving the speed limit, you don't want to get there any faster.
You're like, please turn red this light.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's like, in all honesty, I don't have like weekends off. Like I work my entire weekends, but I mean, I still take a day or two off a week, but it's not weekends, and it doesn't feel. There's never a day that I wake up and I'm like, man, I don't want to do this today. I love what I do, and I'm so happy and thankful to be doing that, where I can wake up every day and be excited to do my day.
Right on, brother. I'm right there with you, and I feel so blessed to be in this position. But again, it takes work to get there, and there aren't shortcuts to building a real business and building a real portfolio. You just got to put in the work. There's no way around it.
Takes work, takes time, takes mentors. You got to surround yourself with great people, and there's so many great people in Rochester.
There is. It's a great city.
Absolutely, we have the best food.
We do have really good
Okay,
food.
I like eating. That's another. It's another fun activity.
Favorite restaurant?
That's harder to answer. Dorado, probably.
Dorado's great.
Dorado's incredible.
It's so small though.
It's tiny, but that's what I like about it. Plus, bar's always open, so there's always a seat at the bar. You can sneak in there,
True.
eat your food, and get out of there.
We were gonna go there on Cinco de Mayo, and then we realized, wait a second, we're not gonna get in there.
Yeah,
So
it's tiny.
We ended up going to Bitter Honey instead, and it was like we pulled up here. It looked like Project X outside. It was like, dude, people were going nuts. There was blasting music,
Yeah,
and
it's insane. The last time I went to Bitter Honey was actually on Cinco de Mayo.
was it?
A couple years ago. Yeah. It was a great time.
They got great food too.
Great food.
Shout out
yeah,
Bitter Honey.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the one thing I can say. I've been to a whole bunch of states now, and I don't think anywhere else has as much diverse food as Rochester does. But it's also more like we have more mom and pop, like it's small businesses owned. It's not like chains.
Yeah.
And the food's so much better than other places. Granted, Texas barbecue is really good, but everything else up here is incredible. Like we're very lucky to have that.
We are our little city. Do you have a favorite book?
Never Split the Difference. I can't
It's a
tell you
great
off
one.
the top of my
Chris
head.
Voss.
Absolutely. Yeah. So much of that's applied to what I do day to day. Man, you can negotiate anything. My transmission in my truck went. I have a work truck. We use it to mow lawns and haul stuff around. And I took it to the dealership, and they gave me a price. And I was like, man, you can't do any better. Da, 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 da. Went back and forth, and I saved like $800 on the job. I mean, I haven't tried haggling in Walmart yet, but I feel like with businesses, everything's negotiable.
It is.
And it's such a powerful book. There's so many things in there that the hardest part is implementing it, right? Because you read it and then you forget it.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't implement it, it was worthless reading it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part, right? You can read any book, but then actually taking steps to implement it in your day to day, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I try to. I used to read like a ton of books, and like you just said, I would forget things.
Mm-hmm.
Now I take the approach of reading less books and really studying them and seeing how I can apply them to my business, to my life. That way, you're actually getting the juice out of the book, taking action on the advice.
I write it down. I have like a little notepad file on my phone. Mm-hmm. So like I'll take notes, and like it's specific things that I can do or implement in my business, whether that's short term or long term. And then I look at that regularly and try to do something on that list, like one thing a week. And I'm not the most consistent with it, but it makes such a big difference just writing stuff down and then trying to execute on it. Yeah, that's always. So like being young, there's so many life skills that you've got to develop, right? Especially when you run a business. Time management is super important, and it's something I never really learned, right? You go to school and you kind of like, they tell you what to do and you follow stuff around. You go to work and they tell you what to do and you do it. It's very like laid out for you. So like business wise, I struggled for a long time with time management because I'd always either be late to stuff. I'd be forgetting about things I had to do. I double book myself all the time. Man, I don't remember the name of the book now. Read a book, same thing, like try to implement some stuff. One of my good friends, Ted, he sent me over this whole It was another book, and it was like a workbook from that book. I got to figure out what the name is.
One really great tip from Never Split the Difference is give people 3 options when you're presenting something, like on a real estate deal.
Yep.
Here's my option with the highest price in this terms. Here's the next option, because people like choices. And,
Yeah.
and if all your choices are win-wins for you,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what they choose, and they still feel like they come out on top.
Yeah, they at least feel like they're making that decision.
Exactly.
Like they're making a choice that benefits them. And all deals should, but given those options makes a huge difference.
Yep.
Yeah, great book.
Anything else that you want to, anything you want to plug? Go check out the
Check
motel.
out the Showboat. Yeah,
Showboat
absolutely.
Hotel.
Nah, just the Showboat, man. I'm excited. That's like one of the biggest projects that I've done, and I'd like to work on more bigger stuff. So we got to see how this goes. But yeah, check it out. It's beautiful. We're right on the water. You'll take a wine tour, come stay the night at our place, and then head back to Rochester. Other than that, no. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude.
It's a pleasure. Awesome. This was exciting.
Where can people connect with you? Facebook, Instagram?
I'm on Facebook. I really only use it for Marketplace, but I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
John Boychuk on Instagram.
Awesome. And like I said, we'll tag you in some clips and get this episode promoted. But John, thank you so much, dude. There was a ton of value in this episode. I know that younger entrepreneurs coming into the game, especially getting into real estate, will find a lot of value in the show. So thank you for your time and just being transparent with everything. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. And I actually like this.
We got
to
do
more of these. Absolutely.
Well, we'll have to have you on the show again. I would love to have guests back, just seeing what people do over the years and having them come back and give a recap on what's been going on. So
absolutely,
we will make sure we get that booked, brother.
Absolutely. I'll be better prepared for it next time.
You were
I know
great,
what I'm walking
man.
into.
You were great. All right, guys, we will catch you in the next episode. Peace.